How y'all doing? I'm Lance. Sometimes it can be really hard to try to figure out which part and which place in the tech space, in the tech world, that you should try to get into and what's best for you. I'm here to do that, to try to make tech less pretentious and to have less complicated language around IT, tech, all that sort of stuff. And I want to talk about the different paths that you can get into when it comes to breaking into tech. Now, I'm going to tell you what's beginner friendly, and I'm also going to tell you what you may need to have some prior knowledge before trying to get into that sphere. So first, let's talk about help desk support, or also known as like IT analyst. This is a great entry-level path. And it's great for people that's just trying to get into tech. That's kind of how I got into tech. My first role was an IT analyst, which is very much help desk. And what you're kind of working with is you're likely going to be staff on a team or part of a company, and you're going to be dealing with people's day-to-day issues. And that can range from, I need you to install this new program on my computer, all the way to my printer broke. And if you are internal IT, you know how much we are not fans of printers, right? But it is part of that role. All right. And as you are getting into tech, these are the kind of roles you're going to be wanting to look for. Unfortunately, those jobs have become a little more competitive since I got into IT, and you're probably going to want to come with a good resume. You're going to want to have projects. You're going to want to have different things in place as you are applying, because you want to be a little more competitive in those roles. Let's talk about network administration and system administration. I work for an MSP, so I'm a system administrator, so I'm expected to do all of the things that a network administrator is supposed to do. But let me talk about how they could be different, right? A network administrator, what is this? These are people that get your internet going. They help data move throughout a different ecosystem, a different building, a different area, right? Or anything like that. And these folks are trying to figure out how to get your routers working, switches working, and get your networks going. There are a lot of folks that are internal network administrators. There are people who are contracted to be network administrators. You typically don't find a lot of internal, like, people that work for companies that are network administrators, unless it's a large area or it's a larger company. If you're doing your job right, and unless people aren't breaking things, those things should keep kind of going for themselves. But it's a very useful skill to have. They pay very decent money. Those folks are going to probably be around for a really long time. Now, let me talk about system administrator, because it's related, right? Because system administration is kind of like the escalation from help desk. A system administrator can also take on some network administrator duties, right? They are expected to learn how to spin up a switch and how to configure network issues and things like that. But the difference is that they also are likely going to be helping dip into everything, right? They're going to be helping you set up your email environment. They're going to help you design your network environment, or more like an engineer would. But the system admin not only deals with the network aspect, but the systems aspect, the software, printers, all of the things that are in between, email, those sorts of things. And those folks, both network admin and system admin, those jobs are, I'm not going to say a dime a dozen, but lots of folks hire and desire to hire those different roles, because these people are like utility knives when it comes to the tech space. They know a little bit of everything. They may even know how to code, or if you're like me, you know how to utilize Python. You learn how to utilize PowerShell to automate certain tasks and things like that on Windows devices, for example, right? Now, let's talk about the cloud. I want to be very specific about cloud computing. These are people that are using things like Amazon Workspace, AWS, Azure, or even GCP. But I want to be very clear on the cloud, because it's a very ominous thing. It's like this, what is the cloud? The cloud is an infrastructure that is built on utilizing other people's servers in mass in different spaces throughout the country, but throughout the world. It's different regions, right, that have servers that are being utilized, that serving the compute power and the server infrastructure is being utilized by other people. The unique thing about cloud is that there are different workspaces you can compile. People build applications in the cloud, right? People like Netflix and people like AWS or people like Salesforce, all these different folks, they build applications and they host data or the infrastructure of that application, of how those things are even running, that's in the cloud. And so these cloud roles are becoming more and more popular. There are a lot of folks who are cloud security, or it's a cloud engineer, or people that are, like I said, configuring these cloud environments. The one thing I will say is this is something that you're going to have prior knowledge for. This is something that you'll probably have been a network administrator already, or you would have been a help desk person already. Not a lot of people roll right into cloud computing. And the reason I would say that is because a lot of cloud computing, it has networking baked into it. You're not getting away from those kinds of things what you would on an entry level kind of deal. And then you got DevOps, right? These are the people who are filling that gap between development and operations. They're automating, streamlining processes, and they are making sure, again, things like those cloud environments that host those apps, that they keep them working, right? They keep them working, or they're trying to identify ways so they can be more efficient. And again, this is not a role I would say you want to get right into, but they pay mad money. They pay a lot of money. And it's definitely something worth considering. Let's talk about data analysts and data scientists. These are folks who their whole job is to parse or scrape data from different systems in different places by utilizing code or by utilizing ways that are way more efficient to help make all the boring data that you would get, to make it pop and to make it insightful and to make it presentable in a way that makes sense for different company execs, your C-suites, or your finance folks and things like that. There is essentially a role like this at every single middle-sized to large-sized company, period. You can't get away from not having a data analyst. This person is a whiz in Excel. This person is skilled in a lot of these different things. And it's important to know that these jobs pay a decent amount of money too. So something to look at. Let's talk about software development. I think a lot of people think that most tech is software development or computer programming. Although it is very important, it is not the only role. However, if you like creating websites, creating apps, or want to even get into that, or maybe mess around with it on your own, if you like coding, if you know what Python is, if you know what C# is, if you know what all of these different coding platforms that allow you to build things in them, on them, out of them, then this is something that you want to do. It is very, very dense. If you don't want to, I'm not saying that you need to love this kind of a role, but you're going to want to make sure that this is something that you want to do, because you're going to spend hours in front of the screen. You're going to spend minimal time interacting with people. But if you find the right role, these software development, software engineering, computer programming, these roles play mad money. They pay mad money. In big tech, they're a little volatile because of between AI. I'm not saying AI is taking all of those jobs, but in big tech, companies are trying to figure out how to kind of deal with that and how they're going to manage that. So that's just something to consider if you're going to be getting into computer programming. My last two things I want to get into is cybersecurity. And the thing about cybersecurity is that it is a big umbrella. It is not a one all-encompassing thing, because there are different things in cybersecurity, right? You got GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. That's kind of making sure different companies are following the guidelines that's set before them to keep them regulated, so that they are operating in a way that's ethical or operating in a way that meets the standards of whatever they're beholden to, whatever is holding them accountable. You have identity access management. That's the area I'm very interested in. And this is simply the science behind getting people access to resources, getting them access to valuable resources, or figuring out why they're not interacting or being able to get into their email and things like that. And also designing the entire thing. Some identity access engineers, there's a whole system that they can build that says, hey, when this person logs into this, they only have access to this and not this. That's IAM. There's SOC analysts. Those are folks who they keep companies safe, essentially, although we kind of all are as IT professionals. But if you work in a SOC, you're likely getting calls from people saying, oh, something's going on my computer, I think it's a virus. Or you're watching different logs of different things that may be happening on a computer, and you're compiling them in something that's called a SIEM. that's going to make sense of it to say, okay, something fishy's going on here. So if you like a low-key a computer cop, this is being a SOC analyst is probably something that you're going to want to do. Those are just a few in that cybersecurity role. I just want to go, as you are choosing these paths, I strongly suggest that you pick one or two and explore them deeper. As you get into these different roles, these companies are going to know whether or not you are just trying to get into something, or if you have a specific interest and you have something that's keeping you going or something that you're going to specialize in when they take you on. That's just something to consider, right? So even if you are a IT help desk person, right, you get into that type of role, or if you're getting into that type of role, it might be important to explain to them like, hey, I'm also working on the app. I'm trying to build an app that solves this problem. That's interesting. And that's something that you should consider to pursue. So let me know if you have any questions about any of these roles. We can go into them a lot deeper. Or if you have any questions in the comments. All right, again, I'm Lance. Peace.